Hello, Yu-Gi-Oh players, and welcome to Yu-Gi-Oh! Business Casual. I'm your host, the RJB0, and yeah, I made that 4 years old. Painted. High quality shit right there. Anyway, so I would like to talk to you guys a little bit about net decking today. I'd like to talk to you guys a little bit today about net decking. One of these times I'm going to get the order of my sentences correct. Anyway, I think I've talked to you guys about this before. I think it was like a year ago, around the same time of year, because let's face it, fall is the time of net deckers. Since there are a lot of new decks coming out in the fall usually, and a lot of new versions of decks that are topping, people want to try them out. And let's face it, there are probably more people complaining about net deckers than there are actual net deckers. But we all know how it goes. We've all been there, where you go to a locals and there is a person who all but dominates the tournament, and you're like, oh, I wonder what they were playing, and you look through and it turns out that they are playing to the last card, the deck that won the last YCS, and they are just bragging about how great they are, and it is, of course, extremely annoying. And while I know that Yu-Gi-Oh! Half of Yu-Gi-Oh! At least goes into deck building, so when you're playing a net decker, you feel like you're not actually playing somebody who is putting their own effort into the game. They aren't actually using their own skill to play against you. While that does feel annoying, and it's especially bad when they start bragging about it, but let's face it, people who get overconfident about Yu-Gi-Oh! Are annoying anyway. They tend to feel a little bit like big fish in a small pond. Now, I actually don't really have an issue with net decking. There is a guy who I call net decker extraordinaire. I tease him a lot about that, but that's not out of any sense of meanness or anger or resentment or anything dumb like that toward him. It's actually mostly because I'm always amazed with the speed with which he does it. I'm not joking. Literally 2 days after a tournament happens, where a deck that he finds mildly interesting tops, he's got the entire deck. Like 2 days afterward. I am not kidding you. It's pretty amazing. Anyway, so while I do tease him about that, I actually don't like to complain about net decking, because for the most part, I don't have a huge issue with it. Sometimes it's attitude that makes net decking annoying for people, since they act kind of superior, or, whatever. But net decking itself actually has some serious benefits. First of all, net decking a good player tends to make you a better player yourself. Not in terms of deck building, but in terms of playing around with the deck and experimenting with it. Once you understand a good player's motivations for putting certain cards into a deck, if you're doing it purely for, I guess, research purposes, net decking can actually have a benefit on your ability to play. Since it allows you to gain kind of insight into how the better players think, and allows you to gain more of an understanding of your own playstyle if you play around with it. Now, the second reason is one actually I take advantage of sometimes, which is that if you want to try making a deck that you have never played before, net decking is oftentimes beneficial, because you don't know where to start with the deck, so you might as well start with something that worked well, and then we'll play around with it for your playstyle. I'm actually taking advantage of that style of net decking myself right now, seeing as I have never so much as picked up a test hand for a prophecy deck. So I feel like, having no idea how to work with prophecy, I might as well try out something that's already worked, which I'm trying to net deck somebody from YCS Toronto. I'm not sure which yet, but in either case it involves my getting High Priestesses, which is proving to be a rather fruitless endeavor. But the point is, I'm using a deck a formula that was already successful in order to learn how to play the deck, so that I can learn my playstyle with the deck and make choices for myself. Now, the last reason why I really don't have any issues with net decking, why I don't like to complain about it, and I think it's stupid to complain about it, is, like I said before, it tends to turn out that these people who net deck and get all braggy about it and think that they're the best because they have a really good deck that they didn't actually make themselves and they happen to have done well with it. Like I said before, those people tend to turn out to be big fish in small ponds. Because when you go to the bigger levels, the higher levels of competition in Yu-Gi-Oh!, you don't see net decking. Like, you don't see the exact same deck down to the last card winning tournaments. You don't see YCS is topped all by the exact same Dragon Plant deck. Or you don't even see people winning regionals with net deck things, and that's because net deckers are ignoring their own playstyle. When you make a deck purely because it's done well before, you're ignoring the way that you play. In order to do well, you tend to have to actually bring an element of your own creative abilities, your own playstyle, into the game. And this was especially true even last format, even possibly especially last format, even with Dragons, which had 50% or more of their deck already made. There were even fewer net deckers than usual because last format was extremely techy. Like, out of any format I have ever seen, last format was more techy than any other. Don't get me wrong, it was a terrible format, but as far as creativity with a single deck list, last format was probably the best. So, even in a format where half of your deck is already made for you, you don't see people net decking in the top tier, in the big events, in the tops of YCS's Nationals Worlds. You don't see it because net decking doesn't play to your playstyle, which means that you're going to end up being less of a good player if you rely entirely on net decking than if you had gone out and adventured around by yourself. You just tend to be less successful. So I think it's actually their own loss that they rely on net decking so much just so that they can beat like 16 people at their locals. So that's my thought on net decking. You guys should definitely talk about it below because I know that you guys have certain opinions on it. I hope you guys liked the video. If you did, hit that thumbs up button. If you didn't, let me know why. And then subscribe for more Yu-Gi-Oh! Videos. Thank you guys for watching Yu-Gi-Oh! and Business Casual. I'm going to give this shelf a break, and I got a jet. See you guys.